Okay, folks, we're going to get started here. I know some people are kind of straggling back from lunch break, but just to get started here and you know respect your time here, I am going to share my screen real quick to go over some assignments. So, all right, so you have in your Bell 3, I'm sorry, Bell 5, your Bell 5. In Bell 5, under classwork from last week, a reminder that you had assignments that were due, and most of you were able to get these in, but there's still a few of you that are kind of lagging behind a little bit. The basics of the executive branch, which I have an apology to Delaney. Delaney, you did write me an email. I'm sorry it took so long to get back to you. I was asking Mr. Ficker because he made this assignment. He did not realize that there was a problem with the assignment. Parts 5 and 6 of this Google Doc were not immediately linked up to the Google site. So if you skip parts 5 and 6, that's totally fine, and nobody got penalized for 5 and 6 being either wrong or incomplete or whatever else. And you had asked me well early in the week, but I kept on waiting for his response. So it is my fault for not getting back to you as soon as I possibly could, but that was kind of the issue with that. So hopefully that's cleared up and you're okay to get it done. You were only responsible for parts 1 through 4 in the executive branch assignment here. Assignment 2, the roles of the presidential crossword. This was done by Ficker student teacher Miss J. There were some questions that were a little rough, so you weren't penalized if you had to reach out and ask for, hey, I don't understand 1D, or it was like 1D and 12A were the two really tough ones. There were others that were, kind of derivations of the word or the term. So we understood that there were some that were a little more challenging than others, and most of you were real good about reaching out. But for those of you that still haven't done this, if you come across a word you don't know or a clue you can't figure out, just reach out via email. We'll let you know. And then this last little bit, this is just a simple assignment. This is just a week in review where you're telling us what you have mastered and what you're still a little confused on. And this is kind of helping us to make sure that the course is answering all questions pertaining to government that you may have. So please make sure you fill out that chart. It's the easiest 25 points you're going to get per week. It just takes a little effort to say, yep, I understand the roles of the presidency. However, some of the executive branch questions, we had people say, I don't understand what an executive order is. There are a few of you that put in stuff on immigration because you were still kind of concerned or confused as to what it means by the different levels of immigration. So again, this is just kind of like letting us know where we need to kind of fill in some gaps. So that's going to be more of a weekly occurrence now, because as we start gearing up, just in case we have to take an air test, because that hasn't been ruled out by the state by any stretch, we need to make sure that we're at least on pace and answering the questions necessary for you guys to do those tests. So please kind of keep in mind that every single time you have a weekly review, you are responsible for it. This week, you have 2 assignments. One is the modern presidency. Okay. Ficker has a little PowerPoint video, if you will. It's a very short one that kind of explains things. But just to give you an idea of how this looks straight up, the modern presidency right here is this assignment sheet right here. You're going to do a Google News search. Okay. And now he even gave you a link here to where when you click on the Google News search, it's going to take you to the news site that Google has, and you can search for topics, locations, all kinds of stuff within within the Google News site. All right. So let's say, for example, you're looking to find the chief or commander in chief of the military. You can literally type in president, commander in chief. And it's going to kick out Trump in the military, what an erratic commander in chief leaves behind, from NPR. Biden inaugurated commander in chief amid heavy military presence. Commander in chief Joe Biden swears in. U.S. military confirms Biden as 46th commander in chief. executive order on enabling all qualified Americans. Now, this was a big executive order from 2 days ago, issued by the White House. You can see it comes directly from the White House. So you may want to use that. Whatever articles kind of appeal to you, what we're asking you to do in this is you're going to explain what the power is. What are the president's diplomatic powers? What are their lawmaking powers? Their power to enforce a law, commander in chief, head of state, representing the people, nominating powers, granting pardons, diplomatic powers, leading his or her political party. Now, here's the deal. Since you guys are in on this meeting and you're doing what you're supposed to do, I'm going to only ask the people in this meeting to do 5. Okay. So you only have to do 5. Everybody else, they're going to be responsible for doing the whole thing. If they don't at least watch the session here. So, if you've got friends that aren't here for good reasons, then you can reach out and be like, hey, you only have to do 5. But if there are classmates that don't even bother coming into these things and don't reach out to me via email and don't watch the follow-up video, then they're going to end up doing the whole darn thing. So if you're here today, you only have to do 5 of these. Okay. And you'll get full credit. Now, how do you get full credit? You have to explain the power. Okay. In your own words. Please do not just give me the Google definition. Okay. Try and say, hey, commander in chief means he is in charge of the nation's military. Okay. That's as simple as you have to make it. I'm not asking for the, textbook definition. I'm asking for what you know it is, if you will. You're then going to give me the article link to the article. So let's say you use the one that he opens the military via executive order to all people. Now, what that means is he's reversing Trump's ban on transgender people in the military. There was a ban in place for transgender folks. And whether or not you agree with it, it doesn't matter. Biden has eliminated that through executive order, as is his right as commander in chief. You can use that article, and then you would summarize the article with a few sentences right here. You're just telling me what the article was about, how it proves that this shows that Biden or Trump, because keep in mind, a lot of these things, Biden's only been in office for like a week. So you may have to go back and look at Trump. You can look at Obama's presidency if you want and see how they did these roles as fulfilled these powers as president of the United States. You're going to tell me how they did it, okay, and how the article helped you to understand it. So this should be, probably about 3 to 4 sentences really in the summary, and it should be of your what you figured out from the article. After you read the article, what your opinions are, what you gathered from it. Don't just cut and paste. Cutting and pasting won't give you full credit. Okay. So again, provide a 3 or 4 sentence summary. So hopefully everybody understands. If you're in the meeting right now, you're getting credit. You only have to do 5 of these. Everybody else going to have to do the whole darn thing. Okay. Now the other assignment is assignment 2 here, the Electoral College. This one is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You are going to, first of all, watch, and I should have kind of brought it up here. You're going to first watch a video here. The Electoral College is just a video that kind of, lays out how the Electoral College works. You're going to watch that video to gain a better understanding, and then you're going to click on this list of presidential candidates and notice 2024. Yes, I know Biden is only 1 week into his presidency, but they are already talking about 2024. They are already looking ahead to, well, who might challenge him in 2024. So what I'm going to ask you to do is look through this list of people who might run for the presidency in 2024. Let's say Biden decides after 1 term, I'm tired, I don't want to do this anymore. He is going to be 81 years old. Okay, so he is, if he serves out his entire first term, because he's 78 right now, when he makes the decision of whether or not to run again, he'll be 81 years old. So he may choose to run again. He may be feeling very young and very, energetic and say, hey, I'm good for another term. And if he's got, let's say he's got good approval ratings and COVID tends to, maybe be handled by that point and under control, he might be very popular. He might not. Maybe his plan for fighting COVID doesn't work and the economy tanks and we're in a much worse spot. And then he may say, you know what, I'm going to exit stage left and allow somebody else. So bottom line is Biden is the odds on favorite for the Democrats. But what if he doesn't run? What if he says, hey, I'm out? Well, these are the list of names of people that could be eligible to run. Because they will be above 35 years of age. They will have lived inside the United States for 14 years consecutively, and they would be natural born U.S. citizens. Okay. So again, that is all kind of the requirements. Yeah, DJ, you can always come jump back on if you need to. Bottom line is, when when and if he decides not to run, these are the people that could possibly run in his place for the Democrats. And of course, the Republicans are all on this side as well. They're all kind of the odds on. Donald Trump can run again. He's eligible to run again. We've only had one president ever win, lose, and then come back and win again. His name is Grover Cleveland. He's your 22nd and 24th president. So Donald Trump could be the second person to ever do that. We'll see. But if Trump decides not to run, well, who is the next Republican up, if you will? What I'm asking you to do is look through this list, okay? Make a determination as to whether or not these people are intriguing to you. And these people are people that serve in the House or serve in the Senate. Maybe they're a governor of a state. So, for example, Kamala Harris is the current vice president. Cory Booker is a senator from New Jersey. Pete Buttigieg is the transportation secretary right now. Sherrod Brown is your, not governor, senator from the state of Ohio. Bernie Sanders, very famously, senator from Vermont, and one of the most famous memes of all time. Elizabeth Warren, senator from Massachusetts. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she is a representative from New York. Katie Porter, a representative from California. Gavin Newsom, governor of California. David Ig, he is the governor of Hawaii. Andy Beshear, governor of Kentucky. These are people who are Stacey Abrams, who ran for the governor of Georgia, lost, but then ran a voter registration drive and all kinds of things within Georgia to swing Georgia blue this time around. She's one of the main reasons why Georgia went for Biden. So she's very high up in Democratic circles because of that. There are other people, of course, and on the Republican side, Mike Pence used to be the vice president. Tom Cotton, a senator from Arkansas. Rubio, senator from Florida. Cruz is a senator from Texas. DeSantis, governor of Florida. Nikki Haley was a governor of South Carolina and then was our UN representative under Trump. Kim Reynolds is the governor of Iowa. Larry Hogan, governor of Maryland. Mitt Romney is a senator from Utah. All these people are governors, or there are some odd ones like Tucker Carlson, who's a conservative talk person on Fox News. But you also have like Sarah Huckabee Sanders was the press secretary for Donald Trump. She's now running for the governor of Arkansas. Kind of look through and see who these people are and see if any of them interest you. Now, the assignment is, after you've looked through some of these names, you can pick 5 of them. What I want you to do is pick 5 of them and really look into them. Okay. And you're going to give me these 5 candidates. It can be all Democrats, all Republicans. They can be a mixture of both. It really doesn't matter. What you're going to do is you're going to research who they are, where they're from, what political jobs they've had, and what experience they would bring to the White House. So if they were to run for the White House, why would they make it at least a decent candidate? You're going to kind of lay out kind of their past performance. You're going to lay out what they've done, why we know them, why they would have name recognition, whatever else. But then you're also going to take what you know about the Electoral College after watching the video and decide, could this person actually win? Do they have enough name recognition? Are they from a state that would actually position them for a solid presidential run? Could they possibly swing an election based upon the region that they come from? All of those factors are explained in the video. What I'm going to ask you to do is assess their chances. And you can also use 270towin.com and ballotpedia.com. Those are excellent reference points to understand who these people are. But you're going to list them out 1 through 5, and then give me 3 to 4 sentences on each one. Tell me who they are. Tell me their prospects for winning an election. That's what I'm asking you to do with this assignment, okay? So those are the assignments for this week, okay? Assignments 1 and 2. Now, from last week, we were discussing the presidency, okay? So we were discussing the presidents and who is kind of had the role and who's maintained that role. So I want to talk just real quick about the presidency in general, okay? And the president of the United States, the presidency is, a complex thing, obviously. It's something that most Americans, you know who the president is, but many Americans don't really understand what their job is and what they actually can and cannot do as president of the United States. So, presidential elections come along every 4 years. Okay, obviously 2020 was the last one. 2024 will be the next one. And election day is on the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. That is federal law, you have to have your election on the first Tuesday after the first Monday, which means it can be anywhere between November 2nd to November 8th. So it's in the first week. It's never held on a Monday. It's always held on a Tuesday, and they never want it to be the first of the month because they don't want the government to be issuing checks, because that's usually a payday. That's a day that Social Security checks are sent out, welfare checks. A number of things are happening on the first of the month. So they don't want an election to cloud the issue. They don't want that extra government function, if you will. So they purposely place it on, at the earliest November 2nd and on the latest November 8th. The elections are based on a winner-take-all system in the Electoral College. Now, that's explained in the video, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, okay? But there are 538 members of Congress, or 538 members of the Electoral College. That is explained again in the video, so I'll kind of skip forward. Now, after the Electoral College settles it and the votes are tabulated on January 20th, per the 20th Amendment, the oath of office is administered to the new president of the United States. You saw this a week ago today, around this time, where Joe Biden took the oath of office, gave an inaugural address, and then they usually march down from the Capitol building to the White House. Now, Biden didn't do that because they kind of said, hey, the parade isn't going to happen. Now, they still had kind of a procession, but it wasn't like there was a big group of spectators there, mostly because of COVID protocols, but also because of some security issues as well. Okay. Now, the qualifications we talked about, you have to be a natural born U.S. citizen, which means you have to be born on U.S. soil. This was one of the main controversies that was put in place when Obama ran for office. People were claiming, including the last president, Donald Trump, were claiming that Obama was not born inside the United States, that he really was born in Kenya. So they were saying he was actually disqualified. And now Obama produced his birth certificate. He was born in Hawaii. And when he produced that, it pretty much ended the argument. But there were a lot of people that really took offense to the fact that people were questioning Obama's birth. Okay. But that was called the birther movement. It was kind of but that's why it was, put in play, is because if he wasn't naturally born here, then he couldn't officially be president. You cannot serve unless you're born here. That's why, for example, a few years ago, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the actor, was also the governor of California for a spell, and he, for a while there, was a very popular governor. And some people were like, man, why wouldn't he run for the presidency of the United States? Well, he couldn't. He was born in Austria, so he was not eligible to run for the presidency. You have to be 35 years old. Now, both presidential candidates the last time were well above the 35-year-old mark. They were in their 70s. Biden was 77 when he was running. Trump is 74. Biden just had a birthday, so he is now 78 years old. He is the oldest president we've ever elected. He replaced the previous record holder, who was Donald Trump. At 71, he was the oldest president we ever elected. So we have this happen every now and then, where you have an older person. Now, granted, we're living to an older age right now, and so that comes to be expected, where your life expectancy going up as Americans, that's going to mean that older people can serve in this capacity. But the youngest you can be is 35. And you have to continuously live inside the United States for 14 years. Now, those are the constitutional reasons why somebody can run for the presidency, or other qualifications that you have to have. Realistically, you probably have to have government experience, but that's not always a rule, because Donald Trump didn't have government experience. A number of our presidents were military personnel and didn't have government experience aside from their service in the military. So it's not necessarily required, but it is encouraged, obviously. It helps to have money. Poor people really can't mount a successful presidential run, because you need money to run for the presidency. You probably have to have some pretty serious political beliefs. To say what you want about Donald Trump, he had very clear messages about what he wanted to do if he became president of the United States. That was one of the criticisms of Joe Biden, is that they didn't hear the same kind of outspoken plans and visions from him. So political beliefs sometimes can help, sometimes they can hinder. Personality, of course, if you can't talk to people, if you're kind of standoffish, if you're, you don't want to shake hands, you don't want to kiss babies, there's problems there. You look like you're kind of aloof, you look like you're out of touch. So personality does matter. And of course, speaking ability, while it's not a necessary thing, being good on camera, being good with a microphone certainly helps. So, JFK, was he really the more qualified candidate in 1960? No, Richard Nixon was, but JFK looked better on television. You may remember that from your U.S. history classes. Okay. Now, your term, 2 terms, according to the 22nd Amendment, 2 full terms of 4 years or 10 years total. Now, that's put in place for a possibility where a vice president takes over in the last year of a presidential administration. They would still have the ability to run for 2 more terms, which would be considered their terms of office. That was kind of put in place because of FDR and FDR dying in office. That the necessity of having that term limit, because FDR is the only president to ever serve more than 2 terms. Everybody else had kind of been following the precedent of George Washington. FDR kind of changed the game, if you will, but he died in office. And because of that, they now said, hey, you know what? The presidency's too stressful a job. We're going to limit that. And keep in mind, if you've ever looked at presidential photographs, it changes. If you've ever seen pictures of, let's say, Barack Obama before he became president and Barack Obama now, that's definitely different. He's definitely aged. All right. I'm trying to make sure I'm not running. Okay. Bottom line is 22nd Amendment limits your ability to serve as president. And the salary, $400,000 a year, but most presidents don't need it. They've already kind of got their own individual wealth. Donald Trump donated his salary to a number of different charities. Okay. He didn't need the cash. Okay. Obama really didn't need the cash. I'm not sure what he did with his, if he donated or not. I know George W. Bush did. He was already very wealthy because of oil. We'll see what Joe Biden does. I don't know if he's going to take the cash or not, but bottom line is the salary is $400,000 a year, and it's roughly around $200,000 if you're the vice president. And you get an expense account, which gets controversial because if you remember, where did Trump go when he went on vacation? He went to his golf clubs. Well, that travel expenditure was being spent at his businesses. There were a lot of people saying, hey, that's a little, a little wrong that you would use government funded money, which is your tax money, at your own golf resorts. So technically you're almost paying yourself. Now his argument was I don't own it. My children own it now. They're in charge of the business, but it still was very controversial. The Supreme Court the other day kind of threw that out and said, hey, that was a special circumstance and we're not even going to bother looking into it. But it did set a precedent that's a little rough. Could a president just kind of benefit themselves using taxpayer money? Because Trump did it for the last 4 years. Needless to say, that's just part of the term and salary. Some of the benefits, you get travel expenses, which again was controversial because a lot of those travel expenditures were going to his golf resorts. Secret Service protection, you get Secret Service protection for life, as do many of your family members. You have Air Force One. Any plane the president steps on is considered Air Force One, but there is a fleet of jets specifically reserved for that title. You get a limo, which is exceptionally, it's got really heavy armor plating. It's the safest vehicle in the world, quite honestly. Helicopters like Marine One, which you saw carrying Donald Trump away a week ago, that's Marine One, the helicopter that took him to Andrews Air Force Base. That was Marine One. They get free medical, dental, and surgical care, and it's always the top. Unfortunately, when Trump did get COVID, he had to go to the hospital, and he got the best care in the United States at Walter Reed. They get a cooking and cleaning staff. If you ever want to really read a fantastic government book, a book called The Residence by Kate Anderson Brower, talks about the life of people that work in and around the White House and what they do, what their jobs are. They, cooking, cleaning, taking care of the first family, you name it. They're there at the president's disposal 24/7. Entertainment expense account. They have the ability to spend money to go out and have a good time. Very famously, Obama took a date night where he would take Michelle up to New York City to watch a Broadway play and go to dinner and then come back. And again, very controversial, is our tax money supposed to be going for a date night? They've kind of redefined it recently as to what the modern day president can and cannot do. And of course, they get a pension, a retirement plan, $150,000 a year. Okay. They also have Camp David, which is a nice place to go just to kind of hang out. It's away from DC. It gets them away from things. If they just need a weekend getaway, they can go to Camp David. They can schedule it and go. At the White House in itself, they get the White House, which is a mansion. It's 132 rooms. Now, of course, a lot of those rooms are either places tourists walk through or their offices, but the residence is the upstairs area, and the residence is used by the first family. There's a pool that they can use. There's a bowling alley that was installed. They have a tennis court on the side yard. They have a movie theater that very famously Bill Clinton used to love to use as a family movie night, if you will. A billiard room. They have a jogging track, which George W. Bush used quite frequently. They have a putting green, which was established by Dwight David Eisenhower. So the White House is very much a lived-in house. It's a functional house. Now, last week we talked about the powers of the president. Now, there are certain powers that are unmentioned in the Constitution. The mandate is the power they have coming into the office after the election. How big was your election victory? How much did you win? And this is kind of determined based upon how much they can get done within the first 100 days, but that's a big deal. Biden's in it. He's 7 days into his first 100 days. He signed a lot of executive orders, but now comes the hard part. He's got to get things through Congress. So how well he gets through things through Congress, how successful, that'll kind of determine what kind of mandate he really had. Constitutionally, he's commander of the nation's military. He has the power of nomination, and he has the foreign policy direction. His meetings with foreign leaders are going to determine how we do things as a country. You also can see a president have crisis power. What do you do when things go poorly? FDR during the Great Depression, for example, Bush on 9/11. And you have mass media power. You have the ability to have a press conference to talk about whatever issue you want. The State of the Union address is a prime time, once a year event where you get to kind of state where you feel the direction of the country is and what you're doing. And of course, you have the inaugural address, which Biden just had. Okay. And of course, there are limits to presidential power. We're going to come back to that another time. The roles of the presidency are what you talked about the other day. Chief of state or head of state is the ceremonial leader. So when the president meets with another foreign leader, they are, I always view this as the take me to your leader line. Aliens drop down and they say, hey, take us to your leader. You would say Joe Biden. He's the head of state. He's the person that is the first person you think about when you think about the United States government. Chief legislator means that they have a plan for a betterment of America. Usually that's laid out in the State of the Union address. The president kind of sets the tone of the legislative agenda. Even though they're not part of the legislature, they kind of tell the Congress what they expect to have happen over the next few days, or the next few weeks or year. Chief politician, they are the chief in charge of their political party. So Joe Biden is the top of the Democratic Party. Donald Trump was the top of the Republican Party. Now, over the next few years, the Republicans have to decide, is that still the case? Is Trump still the leader of the party, or are we going in a different direction? That'll really play out over the next few years as to who's going to take a shot in 2024 as a presidential candidate. They are the chief diplomat. Like I said, they are the ones kind of shaping the foreign policy. They're the ones deciding whether or not to go to war, whether or not to sign peace agreements. You saw Joe Biden use this the other day when he signed on to the Paris Climate Accord again, when he said, hey, we're going to follow and try and limit greenhouse gases. That was his role as chief diplomat. Basically signing off on an agreement that other executives had signed off on. Commander-in-chief means you're in charge of the military. And this is, president cannot declare war. That's a key understanding. The president cannot declare war. He can only really suggest it. He can start a war. The famous joke in DC is that the president may not be able to declare a war, but he certainly can start one. Bottom line is the commander-in-chief has the power to, tell the military what to do and where to go, but he can never declare a war. Only Congress can do that. The nuclear power is still there, though. They have basically what they call the nuclear football that gets passed off back and forth, from presidential administration to presidential administration. And they do swear that they're going to protect us from enemies, both foreign and domestic. In the oath of office. And finally, they are the chief executive. They're the ones that carry out the day-to-day functions of the executive office of the president. They sign executive orders, which Biden has done a ton of. This is normal, by the way. Every president does that in the very beginning, signing orders that kind of cancel out the predecessor's actions. They have appointment power. You've seen Biden appointing people to his cabinet. You've seen appointments to military positions, whatever else. They can also remove people. Donald Trump kind of fired people like it was a bodily function many times, but that was his right as president of the United States. Impoundment means to stop congressional funding. They have the right to do that. That gets a little more technical. They can grant reprieves and pardons. That was big last week when Donald Trump had pardoned a bunch of people, very famously, Lil Wayne and some other folks. He has the power to do that. He has the right to forgive them of any crime that they've been accused of or actually been convicted. They are released right afterwards, which is very controversial, but it is their right. And if they want to do it for an entire group of people, they can do a group amnesty. There were a number of people wondering if Donald Trump would give amnesty to all the people that raided the Capitol building. He did not do that. By not doing that, those people can still be held accountable for what they did. That being said, those are the roles of the presidency. Okay. So what I need you to do is now kind of take that knowledge. If you haven't submitted week 1 stuff, then you need to get on that, because we are getting to the point where you're going to start getting points off for lateness, and then to start on the week 2 stuff for next week and make sure that that gets done by Tuesday night. Okay. So again, we are on that new schedule where now that I've assigned it on a Wednesday, you have until next Tuesday to get it done for full credit. If you have questions, concerns, or anything else, please stay back and ask questions. There are a few of you that did not do all that well first semester. This is a blank slate. You get to start over. So please make sure you're taking the possibility and taking the opportunity to do well. Okay, to hopefully get a better grade this time around. Okay, so please make sure that you're kind of putting in the full effort. Again, I don't want to hold you up to get to your next class, give you enough time to get off and get to 6 bell. But again, if you have any questions or concerns, stay back. Otherwise, have a great day, and we'll see you next week.